Every school tells a story, not through its test scores, its policies, or technology, but through the daily rhythm of its operation. But beneath all of these lies a deeper, more powerful driver of change: school culture. When the culture is strong, school becomes a place of belonging, innovation, and resilience. When the culture is weak, even the best strategies fail to take root. Culture is that invisible architecture of our institution, shaping how teachers collaborate, how students engage, and how leaders make decisions. Today, we're not just talking about improving schools, we're talking about transforming them. Hello, my name is Sheldon, and I'll be presenting an argument that meaningful educational reform must begin with intentional change to school culture, supported by leadership, inclusive practices, and strategic change management. With that foundation in mind, let's look at the first reason why cultural change is essential: its role in fostering innovation. A strong adaptive school culture fosters innovation and continuous improvement. When a collaborative school culture is created, classroom becomes communities of practice where ideas are shared, challenges are solved collectively, and innovation thrives, ultimately improving student outcome. Taurus 2022. In my school, I've seen that when teachers feel safe to experiment, we become more engaging and creative, often developing solutions that go far beyond the call of duty. Wilson, Heenan et al. 2023 further explained that organizational culture shapes behavior through shared values and assumptions, meaning that when collaboration and innovations are embedded in the culture, they become everyday practices rather than isolative initiatives. Now, innovation is important, but it cannot stand alone. To truly transform education, school must also embrace inclusivity. Inclusive school cultures promote equity and belonging, which are foundational to student success. Research by Placo and Leca 2025 did an excellent job in demonstrating that inclusive cultures reduce achievement gaps by validating diverse identities and learning needs, ensuring that students feel valued regardless of their differences. Being a teacher and the school volleyball coach, I have seen that when schools embrace student voice and cultural responsiveness, a stronger relationship and trust is built between educators and learners. This trust creates a safe environment where students are more willing to engage and take ownership of their learning. When students feel that they are a part of a school, it enhances motivation and reduces dropout rates. Allen 2025 highlights that belonging is essential to educational experience and is a key driver of performance and retention in schools. When students and staff feel valued, they are more likely to thrive academically and socially. Of course, building inclusive, innovative cultures require leadership. Let's turn to the role of leaders in guiding cultural change. Strategic leadership is necessary to guide cultural change and overcome resistance. As the leader of the institution, the principal's vision and charisma plays a decisive role in shaping the foundation of the institutional culture. They set the pace for norms systems, so culture supports equity and improvement. Placo and Leca 2025. In my experience, change efforts fails when leaders neglect the emotional and cultural dimensions of reform. Teachers may comply on the surface, but are disengaged when they feel unheard and undervalued. Transformational leadership not only manages structures, but also inspire people, thereby creating greater workflows. Wilson, Heenan et al. 2023 argues that transformational leadership empowers staff and builds ownership of change, making it more sustainable and turning potential resistance into collaboration. Now, some may disagree with this emphasis on culture. Let's consider their counterargument. Critics argue that focusing on curriculum and assessment reform yields more immediate and measurable improvement in students' achievement than cultural change. Taurus 2022. Unlike school cultures, which are often seen as abstract and slow-moving, curriculum interventions such as STEM integration or standardized benchmark can be tracked through test scores, graduation rates, and standardized assessments. Another critique is that school culture is highly localized and difficult to replicate across systems. Deal 2025. What works in one school based on its leadership, community values, and staff dynamics may not translate to another. This makes cultural reform hard to scale, and especially in large schools. But here's the problem: when reform ignores culture, they rarely last. Let's look at why culture must come first. Focusing solely on curriculum and assessment without addressing culture leads to superficial change and staff burnout. While curriculum reform may appear more immediate and measurable, evidence shows without a supportive school culture, such reform quickly collapses under pressure. Consider this analogy: culture is the soil in which reform must take root. Without it, even the most well-designed initiative will fail to grow. Aldridge and McClure 2023 demonstrate that school climate and belonging are measurable constructs directly linked to student achievement, proving that reform cannot succeed in isolation from culture. And to their second point, cultural change is not a barrier to system-wide improvement, but rather the key to making reform meaningful, inclusive, and sustainable. Without a healthy culture, these reforms produce compliance rather than genuine improvement. Although school culture is shaped by local context, research confirmed that cultural change can systematically be guided and scaled. Folland 2020. In closing, the evidence is clear: transforming school culture is the cornerstone of educational improvement. A strong adaptive culture sparks innovation and continuous growth. An inclusive culture ensures equity and belonging, giving every student the chance to succeed. And a strategic leadership provides a vision and guidance needed to overcome resistance and make change sustainable. Critics may argue that curriculum and assessment should take priority, but without cultural transformation, even the best reform collapse under the weight of fragmentation and burnout. So to school leaders, educators, and policymakers, let's commit to building cultures of collaboration, inclusion, and strategic leadership. Because when we change culture of schools, we change the future of education itself. Thanks for listening. Credit is given to the following sources.